Hello, beautiful runners. Today I have a very special interview for you with Brother Colm, the Godfather of Kenyan running. I hope you enjoy.
I want people able to interact and be themselves and their life. And now, there's an aspect of that. There's an aspect of dedication and commitment, but somehow it's the way you do it. If I develop somebody's talent, because you see it as a financial gain, for certainly for your athlete and also for yourself, I think it colours the relationship.
To my best knowledge, Brother Colm has produced more world champions and Olympic medalists in the track and field history than any other coaches. He's called the Godfather of Kenyan running and has been coaching numerous Kenyan runners since 1980s. The list of runners he coached over the last 30 plus years is just amazing. It includes 88 Seoul Olympic 1500 meter gold medalist Peter Rono, former 800 meter world record holder Wilson Kipruto, current 800 meter world record holder David Rudisha, 2017 Boston Marathon winner Edna Kiplagat, current women's marathon record holder Mary Kitani, and the rising star Rhonex Kipruto, just to name a few. Brother Colm first came to Iten, Kenya as a geography teacher in 1976. Ever since, he found Iten as his home and a place to serve the community and especially the young people. I first met Brother in 2015, and since April this year, 2019, I have been living and training in his camp with his athletes. In this interview, Brother Colm talks about what he focuses on when he coaches people, why people are his priority, and how he has learned to coach some of the best runners in history, and of course much more. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I enjoyed talking to Brother Colm. Thank you. Thank you, brother, for allowing me time to interview you. It's crazy. I feel, because the first time I met you was back in 2015, 4 years ago almost. And I kind of showed up at your door without even...
You're not the only one that does that.
Yeah, a lot of people come to you, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
showing up at my door is a regular feature of my life.
Yeah, just like random people.
Random, and sometimes that's it. Not a bad thing either. To just come along, and because sometimes you feel more relaxed, even though the person coming might be feeling a little bit of intrepidation, wondering what's the reaction going to be. Is he even going to open his door?
Yeah, that's how I was feeling.
So, but for me, usually, I mean, people have come around for the last 20, 30 years just knocking at my door, hoping for the best.
Yeah.
And very often they come, and that I like that as well a little bit, because there's a bit more spontaneity.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you plan something too much, it can be a little bit, stereotyped. Whereas I think sometimes it's better to be a bit more reactionary.
Yeah.
In
you
your
kind of just respond
and
to
your
what
interactions.
happens.
Yeah.
So I mean, I was very thankful for your generosity. You let me interview you. We sat at the Iten Center and they interviewed, and you shared about your life and your work here. And I'm very thankful to be able to come back and join the camp here, train with your athletes. Although I'm always coming 20, 30 minutes later. The athletes here, they're just so fast. But I think it's...
But we've no problem with people kind of...
Yeah.
Coming into our program or our system of training and learning from inside, so to speak, getting a little bit of inside, the story behind the story, so to speak, and it's also very nice for us that somebody is interested in really find out what is going on in our program, what makes it different from other training camps or from other training programs. So that's also useful, because I think it helps us to reach out to other people to realize that there's nothing too dramatic happening in our training. But at the same time, maybe there's a human element to our story, and there is a special, there's an approach that we have which touches people. So it's also good to know that, and to realize that our program isn't so regimental, it isn't so military in the approach that you might think has to be there in order to become an elite athlete.
Yeah, I was very surprised to see how much flexibility and kind of space you give to your athletes.
But I think that that's part of my approach right from the beginning, because I think you have to remember that, first of all, you're dealing with people, and people have many and varied aspects to their character, to their personality, and you have to allow for all that. You know, you don't want to become too focused or too regimental in the sense that people see it as a kind of almost a punishment to train. You know, I want people able to interact and be themselves and realize that maybe I try to visualize it as athletes in integrating athletics into their personality, into their character, rather than your whole character and your whole personality becoming athletics. I kind of do it the other way around a little bit. You know, that I like them to feel that athletics and your talent is just only a small part of who you are.
Right.
It's not necessary, although it can become your bread and butter in terms of a career, but that they feel that becoming an athlete is something that is part of a much wider picture about that person. It's not just the other way around, that you're trying to squeeze yourself into becoming an athlete. You make athletics become part of you.
Part of you. And I feel like that's even for amateur runners that I know in Korea who have very aspiring goals, who really, you know, put emphasis on running in their lives. Many of them kind of do that, like they kind of squeeze their life into running, and it becomes very tensionful. It's very it becomes stressful for them. I observe.
Yes, and I think you lose an aspect of yourself then in the process.
Yeah.
You lose really who you are as a person, a human being who has so much to offer the sport in terms of who you are. You don't, instead of you contributing to the sport, you make the sport mold you and dictate your life. And now, there's an aspect of that. There's an aspect of dedication and commitment. But somehow it's the way you do it that can make the difference.
What's the difference? What's the difference of an athlete integrating athletics into their life and the athlete who squeeze their life into the...
But I think it's the approach that you've seen. You know, how I interact with the athletes, how I deal with them, how I have an understanding of them, and how I don't feel that your athletics is your be-all and end-all of your life. Athletics is just a section of your life, where at least in terms of your running career, is only going to be, 10 years maximum. There is life outside the sport. There is life outside. And also, you don't, particularly in our younger athletes as teenagers, you don't want to deprive them of their teenage years. You know, sometimes programs or even parents can be very demanding of their young teenage kids in order to achieve a goal. And sometimes they forget that these young people are passing through a time in their life when they also need to, not lose out on what it means to be a teenager, what it means to be a young person. And if you don't sometimes allow for that in your training and in your approach, years later somebody will begin to realize that I passed through those years of my life, that formation part of my life, without really living it, with the result that you can kind of get a backlash later on, that they can become misfits in society. And when they finish their athletic career, they might find it very difficult to pick up from where they left off in terms of their life.
Have you seen those cases before?
Yes, I think very often you have people who, Kenyan athletes very often, they become social misfits and they go down the wrong path in their life. They don't make a success of their lives. They've made a success of their athletics. And we have lots of challenges of our athletes who get depressed, they go into alcoholism, they don't feel part of their community anymore. So you must get a balance in their career as athletes. And maybe because of the way I entered athletics, not being so technical, not being so regimental in my approach. I basically came to Kenya just to help young people to exploit a talent or explore a talent, maybe rather than exploit.
Yeah, very different.
So they explore who you are as a person, and also I try to keep education and their social life and who they can become much more to the forefront than just feeling that this is it. This is what it's all about. There is a part of that, yes, but there is a very delicate balance that sometimes is not easy to get in the life of a person. Because remember, many of the young people I have, and you saw some 50 youngsters training in my group in April.
Yes.
Not all of these are going to become career or elite athletes.
Very tough.
So, yes, it's competitive, of course, the world of athletics, but I want them to realize that there are many things you can learn from being an athlete that contribute to the other side of your life. You know, it's not just only about the pursuit of winning and becoming successful. And because I grew up in a very, I developed my athletic coaching in a very rural part of Kenya, which at the time was unheard of, unknown. Until more recent years. I had to keep in mind that many of these people are not going to become superstars in the athletic world. But at the end of the day, what have they got from being an athlete? What have they got from going through athletic programs that's going to help them to become better people, not just a good athlete?
And those things are kind of being disciplined.
Discipline, the value of hard work, realizing that your efforts to become an athlete can mold you into being a better person. And it helps your concentration, it helps your teamwork, focus in life, all these qualities that they can help you to become a better person, and regardless of the profession you go into, can be an asset to you.
I mean, I did go through the April camp with you and the athletes here, and I guess I felt a lot. I learned a lot of things, but one impression that stuck with me is that just the focus within those 3 weeks was just incredible, and I was just amazed by how much I could do within that short time frame, because in the camp I don't think I could do that just by myself, but being with you, the coaches, Coach Jorge, Iten, and all the athletes around with me, it really helped me to also bring out something that I thought I couldn't do. And I feel like that's probably is the case for the other athletes too. When they come to the camp, they realize, I can give more, I can work harder, I can focus better, and we can help each other. And
I think it's a whole atmosphere that's created in the camp, that it doesn't necessarily come by just verbal instructions from a coach about what you should do. It's the whole social aspect of it. It's the whole being with your peers as well. There's a lot of interaction, and we always have role models among our athletes. There's those who have made it and have moved up along the ranks, and then there's the younger ones coming in at the bottom, and they learn from each other as well. In fact, they probably learn a lot more from each other than they do from our program itself. You know, because they feel very comfortable among themselves, and they begin to realize that you have this athlete has made it through the ranks, and I too I'm starting out, and then the elite athletes also begin to realize this is how I started my career, and gradually I moved up along through the ranks, and so I think it's And maybe in the Western world, maybe athletics could be seen maybe more as an individual sport, whereas here you see it as a group sport.
Yeah, that's the one thing I also was very surprised, because I thought it was more individual oriented.
Of course.
The track and field usually.
Well, I've always tried to emphasize the idea of group and learning from your peers, and of course they all want to become elite athletes, so you get every opportunity to develop that talent. But I don't want a young athlete to feel that they don't have a role to play or they're not going to benefit from being here just because you don't have a super talent. You know, you still have something to learn. And I feel that I would also like to believe that an athlete who passes through our program has learned something, and there is a place for you in the sport. And it's not necessarily being at the top or being an Olympic medalist or making a very successful financial career out of it. That I think it's great for the formation of young people and their ideas and their goals in life. And I would like to think and believe that when they're finished with such a program, or when they phase out of such a program, that they're taking something with them that will help them in life. So, and I think we give that flexibility in the program to young people to become what you want to become, in a sense. And it's not just the single pursuit of being a top-class athlete. It's not just only that. Although that's there, and they all aspire to that. So in a sense, we have to connect into that as well, to make sure that any young person who, because you don't know where a successful athlete is going to come from, or which one of them who starts out in a very simple way and with their own dreams, and you know, as Lupita said, your dreams are valid. You know, whatever dream you have in life, it can be achieved, not necessarily in the athletic arena, but even in life, through what you gained from athletics. And also, I would like to think that the life you live, the type of lifestyle you develop, the positive things you acquire about yourself as a person, and how you see yourself, is very important to your lifestyle, whatever it's going to be. And in the case of many of the young people in our program who want to become athletes, that athletics is not just something stuck onto your career. You know, it becomes part of your lifestyle, part of your personality. But part of it is not everything about you. And very often, through it becoming like that, part of your career, part of your character, that you have much more control over your talent, over your athletic talent, and you're much more likely to be able to go on to a successful athletic career, and it doesn't destabilize you. And sometimes I think when people concentrate only on that talent and develop only that talent, you can become dysfunctional later on, or pear-shaped, or whatever you like to call it. And then you find it very difficult to be successful in life, because you've only concentrated on just that talent. You know, if you don't control your talent is going to control you. And it's going to become, in fact, very often maybe your downfall as a person, because you didn't integrate it into your life, into your lifestyle, into your personality, into your character, and control it. You must be the controlling factor over that. And very often, we'll say, very successful sports people, their life can go pear-shaped because they didn't take control of that talent.
You kind of let the talent... Because when you have the talent, the word comes to you and demand things from you.
Yes, of course. And then you're not able to handle it.
Right.
If you don't have the demands.
If you don't know how to handle it,
yes.
if you don't know your values, And
yes, you don't have values in life. You don't have guiding principles in your life. So
it can be very difficult.
It becomes very difficult for you, and therefore we'll say if your life only becomes the pursuit of being an icon, the pursuit of being very rich out of the sport, those can come, but being able to handle that status that you're given can be a big challenge if you don't have other support things around you, if you don't have the support people, or even how you think about yourself and how you see yourself.
Yeah.
That's why some athletes go on to become great personalities, great people, and have a contribution to make to the world of the sport. Others get lost, so to speak, in not knowing what it means to be iconic.
I mean, there are so many cases where that happens, and I think it's in Korea the sports is very elite thing, and most of the programs from even from middle school, high school, and college, it's all geared towards you developing your talent and becoming professional and making it as a professional. And recently in Korea, there have been many scandals about coaches hitting athletes, punishing physically, and like backdoor bribery money. Like, some athletes become selected to play at like a famous college or even in national team because there was some money behind. So it all gets very corrupted, I think.
It gets corrupted, it gets very murky, and I think you lose the fact that you're dealing with a human being, you're dealing with not just a person who, you're dealing with a personality, you're dealing with character building, and you're dealing with people that become, in a sense, if you concentrate only in the pursuit of financial gain or becoming iconic, and that's your only pursuit in life, you become very vulnerable to society. And then it's society that starts shaping your life. It's society that starts determining who you are, because you can so easily lose control of yourself and what you and the strength that you have, that you draw from your sport, becomes a weakness. And I think it can happen, and I think that's of course where the whole drug situation comes in.
Yes.
It's win at all costs. It doesn't, and you have people who will latch on to your life and to your talent with that in mind, and you become very vulnerable.
There are two things I want to continue to talk about financial gain and drugs. I kind of knew that you weren't involved in financial stuff with your athletes, but I was also surprised to know that you have nothing, like you told me last time, you have no, you don't deal with finance with your athletes. You don't want to know. You told me, and you just let it be. And I feel like that really helped you to become a great mentor for your athletes, because like you said, when they look at you, they look at you as a 100% mentor, someone who wants to help them. You're not someone who's trying to exploit them or trying to get something out of them, because your financial, whatever your status, is not connected to their success. It's more you just want them to be a good person, good athlete. You want them to have a good life, not just win races and win medals. So I just want to.
I think if you pay too much attention to, or go down that road of becoming that finances becomes a motivating factor for you, and sometimes maybe the only motivating factor as to why you identify and develop somebody's talent, because you see it as a financial gain, for certainly for your athlete and also for yourself. I think it colours the relationship, and it can take from it. Now, of course, finances are an aspect of anybody's career, because you have to survive, you have to make a life. But I think you have to be careful as a mentor, as a coach, that it doesn't start to affect and colour the relationship you have with your athletes, because very often then your level of success and your level of how you judge your progress and your mentoring of an athlete is in danger of being judged only in financial terms, that you tend to forget about the other social aspects, the other mentoring aspects of somebody's life, that they can see you as somebody who is there for them when they need you, and not in financial terms. And you're not only judged by the amount of money an athlete makes or the type of success that they have, but I think so. I didn't come in on that level. I didn't come in as somebody with qualifications in coaching, or with somebody who is going to judge our success, myself and my athletes, in terms of how much money they make. Now, of course, that might sound a bit strange in today's world of professional sport, that you do not pursue the idea of being successful in monetary terms, but that maybe the fact that I worked in this quiet, reserved part of Kenya, and that I dealt and still do largely with young people, where the professional side of the sport hasn't yet entered their psyche, and so I've been able to keep my distance in terms of growing financially, and I think that's how I've seen my involvement. Now, maybe I could have gone on to become a more successful coach, financially successful coach, in other careers or in other areas, but I've always stayed in Iten. I've always emphasized my involvement with young people, where financial gain is only very limited. But so I never saw my athletes as a source of finance. I've never tried to judge my athletes or their success in the athletic arena by how much money they made. And I think that gave me that little maybe advantage as a coach, in that was never part of my career. That was never part of my judging how successful I am. And I think the athletes then, I think, felt maybe a little bit more comfortable with the way I approach my coaching and my training, because it was never colored by seeing them as a road to financial gain, or as a method of even making them see athletics only in a financial way. And of course it leads on to how this whole drug situation develops, because you see it as a get rich quick. You see it as something that can ruin your whole career. The achievements you can have had in the past suddenly go down the tubes because of who you end up, and you're always going to be remembered for the wrong reason.
Right. There's this guy. His name's Erupe. He's from Iten. He's a Kenyan runner, and he got accused of EPO. He got caught for doping. He was exempt for competition for 2 years, but now he naturalized to Korean citizen. So there was a big scandal before that discussion was going on, but now he's Korean. He's going to represent Korea in Olympics and competitions, and it just really pollutes the whole idea of athleticism and the pure spirit of, competition. And I feel like the spirit of sports is about being honest to yourself and to others around you, and it's all about
It'd be very
clear
unfortunate
vision.
that if your only reason for being an athlete is to make money, that's your only driving force, then you expose yourself to other negative aspects in the sport. I'm not saying financial success is negative, but you do leave yourself vulnerable and open to the other aspects, like taking drugs, any form of cheating in the sport. The sport begins to lose its integrity. And I think also you giving young people the wrong message.
Yeah.
As a coach, or as if you drive young people only because of who they're going to be and the recognition they're going to be given by being successful. But then suddenly, if drug and performance enhancing drugs take over your career, then of course eventually the bottom falls out of your whole approach to the sport. And you who maybe dreamed one day that you would be an icon in the sport, that you would be somebody who would be admired and held up as an example, especially to young people, the bottom falls out of that, and you're suddenly remembered for the wrong reason. And that is the danger and the risk that you take, and I'm sure many athletes who have now tested positive for in various circumstances in the sport would give away a significant amount of their wealth if they could redeem their career.
Yes. Their name.
Their name.
Yeah.
Career. So that's how that's why I tread very cautiously, as by advising, and maybe I think you can try to advise or mentor your athletes, but I think you must teach them the value and instill, not just teach or tell, the advantages and the integrity of the sport, the purity of the sport, what it means to be a top-class athlete and honored for that, and held up as an example to young people, as a role model. That I think it must come from almost the beginning of a young person's career, by instilling in them the value of fair play, the value of having a level ground in terms of competition and who you are. So it's not just a matter of only putting forward the idea that if you're caught, you're going to be penalized. If you're caught taking drugs, you're going to miss out on your sport and and that. I think it's something that must be in the psyche, in the development of a young person's life, of realizing the value of fair play and integrity in the sport.
And like having the successful athletes who went through your program here, having them in the youth program with the young athletes, I think that also kind of inspires them to see that, if I put in work, honest work, I can also become successful without, drugs or cheating.
Yes, of course. The people who have gone on to the highest level become fantastic role models for the younger people, of realizing that I don't need to go down that road. I don't need to get involved in any kind of shady deals in my career, to be successful. And I think that's the side of the sport we have to put forward, and that's the side I try to promote about my young athletes as they develop through the various stages of the sport.
And you're talking about your success, idea of success. The financial gain
is not really a big part of your idea of success in life. And I feel like you are living a life of service to people around you. And I'm wondering if there was a moment where you decided if that's the way you wanted to live, because there's so many people who do a lot of things for money in this world, because it seems money can do almost everything. But you're living a life that's very focused on service.
Yeah, money has its place
Right,
as a
that's right.
motivating factor.
Yes, yes.
I mean, it would be very foolish of anybody to say we don't need money, or money is the only, or should be a priority. Yes, it's there, but I think everybody must learn how to handle it as a motivating factor. Everybody must try to keep it in its place. You know, it has its place in our lives. It has its place in our careers, in our family. We support people, and we develop aspects of our lives through money. And many of the Kenyan athletes come from very poor backgrounds generally. And you cannot, as a coach in Kenya, get athletes to totally forget about money as a motivation. But it has its place. And I think you must get a balance in what motivates them. You see, for one person, they're going to go on and use athletics to make good money. And that's there, and that's inevitable, because shoe companies and agencies are going to dangle money in front of your athletes as a way of getting them to perform better. And that's okay, but you must keep in mind that money has to be kept in a context of their lives, of their life values. That is not money at all costs. And that athletics can also have some other goals. Like, for example, some of my athletes will use athletics to further their career. Further their education.
Yes, going to
and it will also get them to some people like the recognition that they get from being successful athletes. But you must learn to control it. I mean, you must learn to keep a balance. You must learn it to have to be a form of meaningful motivation, so to speak. But I wouldn't like to feel that any of my athletes you can run purely on idealistic terms, that I only want to be a successful athlete to win medals, or to represent my country, or to gain recognition. Yes, money is there, but it's the way you handle it. It's the way they see it. Because you become vulnerable when you become only money oriented. And I think that that then opens you up, of course, to the possibility of the drug situation, and the possibility of pursuing a career only on a money level. Now, I'm fortunate in that I came to Iten, to Kenya, not in the pursuit of money. If I would not be in Iten or stay in Iten if I was pursuing a financial career out of the sport. And so it's maybe it's something that I can afford to be, and I've been blessed in being able to afford to be the opportunity I've been given in Iten. And it would have been a very different life for me if I went into the other side of the sport, and fame and fortune were my guiding careers. But I always wanted to work with young people and give them values in life that they respect, and give them motivation that is maybe more genuine in that sense. And then they take it from there. Once they've been given that kind of a start in life, I kind of believe that now, as a young man or a young lady, now you move on with your career in whatever direction you believe in, or whatever direction you think is right for you, but keep in mind the basic values you were given at the beginning.
And was that idea of serving young people always in your mind?
I think that's part of the reason why I came to Kenya, that I wanted to, yes, as a teacher in a classroom, you can have a certain level of input into people's lives, and people always remember the person who taught them in school. But very often you are not remembered for necessarily the knowledge you gave people while in class. You're very often remembered for the type of teacher you were, or the type of person you were to them, or the way you treated them, or the way what you meant to them, beyond just the mere pursuit of knowledge as a teacher. Yes, that's important, and that also gave many people a career in various professions. But how you interacted with your pupils, what you meant to them, the type of, you were somebody maybe who can talk to them, advise them, the values you gave them in life. I would like to think, and also a lot of that came from how you interacted with them outside of the classroom. And to me, sometimes the best way to approach young people is to touch an area of their life in which they are passionate about. Now, some people it could be music or drama, some people it could be sport. For me it was athletics. I think you get a common ground, you get an area that they're passionate about, and that's where you can very often most influence people, because they become most open to you in those areas, in the area of sport in my case. And you can interact much better with young people, and you can give them values through a medium, not necessarily by just telling them or giving them knowledge, but by the very fact of how you deal with them, how you treat them, how you interact with them, and they then see you in a different way, not just as a disciplinarian or as somebody who is just there pushing them to pass exams, that they begin to view you or see you in a different light. So in that way, you have a new access to their lives, you have a new avenue to their life, and you can influence them in a much more positive way very often. And that's how they see you. And that's why I kind of stayed grounded in St. Patrick's with young people.
That's where you find meaning in your life.
Correct. That's where I found it much easier to have an impact in their lives, and then I built around that concept, but I always kept that idea in mind.
And that idea
why
was,
I came, what I came for, and how I can do it.
I just had this question. You just said that idea of why you came, was that idea always same, or did that idea kind of develop as you...
It developed over time, because of course...
question, why am I here?
Circumstances changed, the sport became professional, the sport, Iten became a center of interest to other people from outside the local community. St. Patrick's gained a reputation for its sporting achievements. So there was a level of development in that I had to take into account as time moved by. And of course also now the sport itself started to take on a different meaning and professionalism and all that. So I had to go with the flow a little bit with what was happening in the sport, but still keeping that original concept, even though it might have taken new forms and new approaches. I was able to still, I hope, keep that original idea I had in my mind as an anchor to keep myself grounded in what I would like to do and what I would want it to become to the local community. You know, and the sport has gone far beyond St. Patrick's now, far bigger, and it has a new impact. But I still would like to think that I'm still keeping that the concepts, the ideas, the values that I started out with and that I developed at the beginning, still very much part of my work among the young people here.
Yeah. Impacting them, positive influence. I think when you talk about, so we talk sometimes during the training or after training, we have some story conversations, and the moments when you have the biggest smiles, I found that is that when you talk about the athletes you once coached, come back and visit you and share their lives with you.
I think that's an indicator that what they learned in my program and what they experienced, maybe even also goes among their fellow athletes, and the fact that they still maybe hold on to the values and even the type of training that they got in the program, that they still very much respect it and value it, and it's still very much part of their elite careers now, that they're able to come back and share with the young athletes what this training program meant to them, and that they're able to still value it and still see what it meant to them. And not only that, but most of them, when they do come back, they'll talk about the person that meant something to them. The person, and not sometimes even the values or even the ideas or the training program, but I think basically we are touched by people. Ideas, yes, concepts or values, yes, but it's the people that touch our lives. So my idea has always been people-centered. I have no facility here as such.
There's not even
no
a gym
gymnasium, I have no track, I've just a field. So it's about people. And because I came into Iten, which had in facility-wise nothing, people might be shocked to think there's no track in St. Patrick's, it's just a field. I never had the idea of putting facilities as a priority. I always would like to think that people were my priority and that facilities never became a stumbling block to my touching people's lives, to molding their character, to instilling values. I never needed facilities. I never complained about, I don't have a track, so I can't produce an Olympic champion. I don't have a gymnasium, so we can't do proper training. Very often I think that we can overemphasize facilities at the expense of a person. So, and they all come back and they'll talk about Amos, or they'll talk about Simon or Ian or myself. The people. So I always made it people-centered because I had to. Because I came into an E10 which had nothing. So my only solution was make it people-centered. Make the person the most important aspect of my coaching. Not what I can offer in terms of facilities or training, even training programs. So that's why they all go back to, this is what we learn from these people, from experience with interacting with these people. So I always emphasized that I never felt I can't do something because I don't have the facilities, I don't have the equipment. I mean, we're very grateful for the equipment for which Adidas sponsors us and helps us. And that is fantastic, and that's, as you said, asked me a moment ago about further developing the idea. Yes, when companies came on board and started realizing that with some basic facilities and equipment that we can help the program, and that's good, and that's fantastic. And I think that, but I would never see a lack of facilities as holding me back in what I'm going to do. I mean, and the work that we can. So, and I think the fact that I came to Kenya not having very technical knowledge in coaching made me concentrate more than on the person, because I depended on my athletes at the beginning to teach me how to coach.
That's very rare, I think, in other places.
Yes, of course, in today's world of knowledge and qualifications and certification and that, that would not perhaps be possible. But that meant that I learned how to coach Kenyans from a Kenyan point of view, not from a Western point of view. Up to that time, a lot of the coaching, some of the coaching in Kenya would have been Westernized, but because I didn't have a Western background in terms of coaching, I came up with a Kenyan system. And that's why I think Kenyans took so readily to it, because they felt this is coaching made in Kenya.
Yeah. They felt like they were listened to. They felt
this
like
is our system. This is our training. This is the way we would like to train.
Yeah.
It's not being imposed by somebody coming from the West and telling us how to coach, how to train, how to do our drills and our exercises and our motivation and our mental approach to our coaching. This is coaching made in Kenya. And that's why they felt this is ours. We own it.
So athletes do express that, I'm sure. And
Yes,
they
of
feel
course.
very comfortable.
Yes, this is made in Iten. This is coaching for Iten, made in Iten, by Iten.
You know, many people, so I put like pictures and videos of our training here, what I eat here on Instagram and things like that, you know, pictures, and people are like, what? They don't take breakfast? And I'm like, that's their life here and that's what they feel normal to them. And I feel like if you had a, let's say, background in nutrition or physiology or some coaching, it could have been a thing that you might have forced a kind of breakfast regimen even, or something that's could Kenyans might feel very unnatural, and that would might have, you know, caused some more conflict or friction between, you know, you and athletes. And I feel like you just kind of let them do what they feel comfortable to do, and then
Well, I grew it from within.
you just support them what they need.
And what they felt, this is what we should eat, and this is the lifestyle we should live, and this is our approach to our running. And I just said, let me take that and develop that or refine it. Just a little bit, over years and years, of course. It's not something I changed overnight, but just take it and polish it a little bit. And they will then realize that, yes, he's taking our ideas, he's taking our approach, and he's just tweaking it a little bit, refining a little bit here and there. But it's our approach, it's our method, you know. I mean, people often ask me, as you probably know, especially reporters, will tell me about does Rudisha have a nutritionist, and does he eat a special diet? Or even now people might say the same about KK, you know. And they're very surprised, as you know now, that these guys don't have a special diet. They just eat their regular Kenyan food. I mean, as long as it works, why change it? You know, if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Don't reinvent the wheels,
You see? So in that sense, yes. So I think that's why maybe the athletes here, and of course, remember now, it was some 20, 25 years of local refining and local approach before it kind of began to leak out to the outside world that this is what we do in Iten. You know, it wasn't until the 1990s that people began to kind of notice Iten as a center of training, but then they began to realize, you know, at the beginning when I would have started and shared a little bit maybe with outside coaches, or when I would go on holidays or go to competitions, Iten was nothing. I mean, why bother with Iten? Who's in Iten? And it wasn't until slowly, and I was in no panic about this to try and convince them, this is how to do it. This is the way we should be going. You see, when the Western world was becoming so sophisticated in training and
heart
science and
they have now
technology
earphones that tell you how to run.
Correct.
It's crazy.
You see?
Yeah.
But I was in no panic because I didn't worry. I was just a coach, a high school coach in a corner of Kenya.
Yeah.
So it didn't worry me, you know. And I didn't even know that eventually people will start to focus a little bit on Iten and find out what is going on in the area and how is the training and what is happening. And it wasn't until 20 years, 25 years after I came that people began to focus a little bit more on Iten and began to realize there must be something going on here. You can't have that number of athletes coming through a program or a system without something happening. You know, so that's now gradually. But I was in no hurry with that. I mean, I wasn't here to promote Iten as a center of coaching or a special area that has a reputation. That was not originally my idea, and still is not really my idea. If people want to come in and benefit from Iten as a training area and but I think also Iten kind of has added or has questioned the Western world of coaching. Maybe we became too scientific, maybe and too technical. Running is among the most simplest, basic of movements for the human being. So maybe we need to go back and look at the simplicity. You know, look at the basics of the sport. And maybe that was kind of the wake-up call coming from Iten to the world of athletics.
I think this is a good point for us to wrap today's talk. And I think you gave us good ideas to talk about next talk about the simplicity, the evolution of training program here. So I'm very curious how your training program was in the beginning, how it evolved, and what inspired you to kind of make some tweaks and changes here and there. So, and as you told me you have like an hour, so I want to be respectful of your time.
Yeah, well, I think an hour is enough for today.
Yeah.
And that is good that, you know, that I just gave you kind of background to what we're doing. But, you know, so maybe you'll take up on the simplicity.
I mean, that's the one, that's like the one like biggest thing I also learn every day here. Just so simple. But in Korea, in US, I know people with they run with like this heart rate monitoring around their chest. They now have this Garmin watches that measure heart rate through like crazy sophisticated technology. And it also measures how many microseconds your each foot touches the ground.
That's right. We had this guy here from UK, or was it New Zealand? And he wanted to do
measure athletes.
He did a research on KK in running over here. And exactly, he was able to come back and show me on the computer how many microseconds KK was spending on the ground. And he attached things to both legs. And he was able to tell me which leg was more in touch with the ground than the other one. You know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and yes, very useful, of course, to some people maybe, and it may have some value, but we'll talk about that. But yeah, he was able to now they can measure even the arm movement,
Yeah.
the leg touching the ground,
The cadence,
yes,
of course.
exactly. So yes, and that is, you know, but we can maybe explore that area. That's a whole different, no, not different. It's a now part of the sport.
Yeah.
But maybe what value it has in Iten today, and compared to what the oversimplistic
Yeah.
approach I had 40 years ago,
Yeah.
when I knew nothing about the sport.
Yeah.
And I often say that you know, my big advantage was I knew nothing.
That's okay. Yeah, I'm excited for next time because I'm so curious how you started. So I never, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for your time today.
Good, welcome. Good. Now we can.
Thank you guys so much for watching. As you could have seen, I was a little nervous in the interview. In the next interview, hopefully I won't be that nervous. Please leave comments if you have any questions for Brother Colm. I'll try to ask the questions you comment to him in the next interview or in other future interviews. In the next interview, we're gonna talk about how Kenyans train differently from runners in the more or less developed countries, how Kenyans keep it simple, and also how Brother Colm's coaching system and his philosophy on running has developed over 40 plus years. In fact, he always says that he learned how to coach from athletes. He had no background in running or athletics or sports or fitness before coming to Kenya. So it's very interesting when I hear his story of how he learned to coach. So stay tuned, like and subscribe, and as always, run with joy and gratitude. Thank you. Bye.